Well,
Tight.
yeah, a
We
great.
are live
Oh,
as of right now. There we
oh,
go. Good evening, everyone. So we've hit the 6:30 mark. Me and Robin are chatting like two Airbnb hosts here in the background, catching up on some Airbnb stories. We trust you're doing well and that you're ready for another power session. So, Robin, you've had a fantastic trip now abroad. I've also been abroad, and all I know from being abroad is that I don't live near my listings anyway, but everything ran like clockwork, which I have you to thank, obviously. From implementing your systems and all your tactics over the years, I can take a holiday. I mean, I was completely off the grid. My phone was off for a full 5 days. I did not switch it on, and nothing happened. Like my guests came in, my guests came out. I got 5-star reviews. My bank balance got higher. It was quite nice. Yeah. So thank you.
that sounds like a holiday well paid for.
Exactly right. Peace of mind paid for.
Yeah, I've got a kind of similar dilemma that I might go to the US at the end of next week for just
Yeah.
5 days. And there's this kind of like, well, if I go to the US, then I'm making money here because I'm going to let out where I'll be staying here. So then
Yes.
I was like, okay, well, that's where kind of traveling can, well, doing Airbnb can help pay for your travels.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Jacques, there's probably something that is worthwhile us chatting about today because
Yeah.
I've got a lot of messages. People have sent me all this whole message about
Mm.
South Africans' new tourism. It's a new white paper. I think they're
Yes. I've
out
heard
there
about that.
on,
Yeah.
clamping down on Airbnbs, and I think it's worthwhile just chatting about that.
Cool.
Especially because I think we discussed it last month, or the 3 weeks ago. New York also clamped down, and others do. I mean, I remember when I went to the States maybe 5-6 years ago. It was Los Angeles, and there the Orange County, which is a suburb within Los Angeles, had also implemented a 30-day minimum short-term rental. So you had to stay for longer than 30 days for it to be okay. And I remember the host messaging me and say, listen, if anyone knocks on your door, tell them that you're staying for 30 days. And I'm like, no ways am I going to be implicated in this.
The liar around here.
And someone knocked on the door.
Oh,
And I
wow.
just said, listen, I booked this like 8 months ago. And it is. And, so things were going to change, but it's worthwhile. Well, seeing as though we're talking about it, let's just jump in. It's clear that there, in Airbnb, we have an advantage. And for some of us, we're taking advantage of that. And the advantage is that we are running a business in a way that doesn't require business licensing from the property or any form of regulation from the municipality. If you want to open a B&B, a bed and breakfast, you have to register, pay taxes, and have the correct zoning, all those kinds of things. Hotels, likewise, special taxes, special zoning, a whole lot of regulation, fire, food, all of that requires quite a lot of input. So here comes us, an Airbnb, and we just say, hey, come stay at my space. And we don't have to register. There's no compliance, no regulation, no extra taxes. And obviously the hotels and the bed and breakfasts are complaining because they're losing business and they deem it unfair. Now, hotels, well, that's a different matter. I've got no sympathy for them in this deal. The B&Bs, that's because their model is so similar to ours, except that the B&B provides breakfast. And that is traditionally where everything changes, because as soon as you have a kitchen that is prepared, that prepares food for someone, you're damn right you should have some serious regulations and compliance processes
Yes.
in place. So that I can fully get. I also understand about the business component and about the correct zoning. The difference, though, is a guest house and a B&B is set up more like a multi-let. It's multiple rooms rented out to separate individuals, families. Whereas in Airbnb, I'm just renting out my apartment or a house as is, as if it was for a family. It just happens to be a
Yes.
short-term stay. So there are some differences. And some people have said, well, wow, does this make a difference to what's going on? And I think in South Africa, we need to look at it from two components. Things take a lot of time to get processed. So we know that this is going to take a long time. Secondly, we also know with fact that South Africa, the government, and Airbnb signed a shared partnership contract a couple of months back, looking to bolster the tourism in South Africa, because we know that that's a huge revenue for us, and there's no way it's going to clamp that down. Secondly, how you regulate that, like who's going to check if you're got the correct zoning or not? Now, that's exactly what we know happened in New York. As soon as it went, as Airbnb shut down there, well, it all came up on different platforms and in different ways, Facebook ads, Google ads, and there were ways to get around it. I think you shared that. So I think it's something for us to obviously keep looking at, because like with anything new, and even though Airbnb has been around a long time, I think we've definitely seen, and I can't claim credit for it, that just because someone does my course, suddenly we have an influx of, people renting Airbnbs. Although, like so some of the students who've done the courses, are into their 20 units now. Another one just closed on 6 in one building. It's just like the landlord owner had the whole building, and he went along and said, I'll take all 6. I think they're probably about 15 or something. So there's definitely an increase in the number of people turning to Airbnb as a business, not just I want to earn an extra amount of money, on my home.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthwhile us noting that the some of the kind of like the framework might change a bit, but the fundamentals are still all there. And we're a whole lot of the students are also looking at alternative platforms. There's the Airbnb, obviously we know Booking.com, there's Verbo, and then you start moving into the Lekker Slaps and the different local ones, which Knightsbridge is another platform that you can put your. The integration is tricky, and I love just automation and systemizing. So that's where it comes in. We haven't really explored that in a way that if we suddenly find that competition is so tight, we have to diversify on platforms. Well, we can get to that. So I still think there's a long way to go and a lot of money to be made. And we've already seen now with this uptake again in the season, we're all sitting back saying thank you very much. Bring it on. So we're definitely gearing up for a good season. Certainly, that we can see it in here. I mean, I'm looking over at the beach, and I'm just seeing that's beautiful. I mean, Cape Town today is like a perfect Cape Town.
Yeah, it's a good day.
On the beach, I went for a swim just before our call. I mean, there they are, like umbrellas are still out. The people are swimming, even though it's cold. You know what Bloberg's like.
Yeah, exactly.
Cold.
People still swim.
It's amazing. And yesterday the kite surfers were out because they, obviously I've got the penthouse right at the beach here.
Yes.
And man, it's spectacular watching these guys. So
yeah.
So I don't know if you have any other comments about my monologue there. As a talk show host who has the monologue, there's my monologue.
Exactly. There's your rant for the day. So I'm not too concerned about this. I mean, this has been on the cards before. I am all for fair regulation when it's in the best interests of guests and or hosts. I'm very against regulation for the sake of regulation, especially when it's not driven by government and it's, for instance, driven by the hotel industries and those guys trying to push things, which was the case in New York. It wasn't legislation from government side. I don't think South Africa is at risk for a minimum stay policy. They would instantly kill a lot of things, especially tourism. They would hurt tourism. And as you said, Airbnb signed that mandate with the city of Cape Town and with national government. So yeah, I don't know. At a minimum, I would expect them to maybe say, look, you have, or I would hope that there are regulations in there like, fine, you have to have an emergency kit on site. Fine, you need to have an emergency escape plan pinned up against the wall. These types of things, or a fire extinguisher on site, or whatever, right? Or properly disclose certain things. But as far as taxes go, I would say that's my biggest concern for what's coming here. Obviously, you are legally required to pay tax on your Airbnb earnings, as you should. And there are ways to pay less tax if you know what you're doing, but they're still legal. But the reality is, if there's an extra tax, that would be a bit of a pain. I don't think that is realistic, though, especially for uh, getting that tax, unless Airbnb plays ball. But once again, as you said, there are many other platforms, right, that we can play with, and they will not force every platform. I know Booking.com and Vrbo does not play nice with the New York government the same way Airbnb does. So the reality is they will have to choose their fight. And I just hope that saner heads prevail. But your point is noted that this is going to take a long time. So, and we also have the option to publicly participate in this process, and I think we should. So I have drafted some comments and stuff, but I haven't read the entire mandate yet. So I need to spend the time to go through it and then to participate. So anybody watching this, please do take 10 minutes out of your life to actually participate. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's check. Are there any questions, queries from anyone listening, from anyone who's submitted before?
Yes, we do. So we have one from Boitumelo. Why can I not add it to the screen? Oh, I know why. But I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Hi, Jacques. You mentioned switching off your phone and being off the grid for a week. How do you handle..." There we go. Thank you, Sweleni. "How do you handle guest inquiries and communication effectively to ensure a smooth booking process?" I will give it over to the wizard himself to explain how that happens.
Well, I mean, you might have a different process or solution there.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, let's discuss two. First and foremost, okay, the one that we want to put in that's automated, at least in the Airbnb, I don't know, it's not in the Airbnb, it's in the Guesty platform, is the auto response.
Yes.
So we want to keep our good ratings with the platforms. We want to make sure that the platforms, Airbnb, Booking.com, see us as good hosts. And one of the things that they value is quick communication, quick response times. Airbnb focuses, or Booking.com, I think, is 24 hours, and they get a bit antsy if you're not replying. They send you a message saying, hey, you haven't replied to a message, even if it's not a message that actually you don't reply to, because maybe you just said thank you. They can't determine if that's a question or not. So they say, hey, you need to reply to the message. And it's like, well, the guest just said thank you. There's nothing to reply. So you have to click it and say, mark as done. You have to say, this conversation is done. We've had it. So what some of the channel managers do is they respond on your behalf if you have not responded within a certain time frame. I have set mine for 30 minutes. So if a guest messages and I haven't responded back, it responds back automatically. Now, you can, in my case, I usually say, hey, I'm traveling, time zone differences, I'll get back to your question soon. And then usually at a certain point I am, but at least that message has been done, and Airbnb and Booking.com therefore can see that I've responded even though it's been automatic. There are also settings that you can accept certain things directly from an inquiry. I don't, because I'm usually online or my assistant is online, so they can do that on my behalf. And that's just another way that that's managed. Another option, if you know you're going to be out of contact, out of contact as in you're going out of range or something happens, is you coordinate someone else to just take over or co-host for you for a while. And that means they have access to the messages. They can reply back, even if it's just, hey, Jacques is out of town at the moment, and reply back when he gets back. Those are certain ways that you can do it that still keep the communication going.
Yeah.
So, okay, I don't know if you've got any others that you use that you want to add.
I think the one important thing to mention here, Boitumelo, is the fact that Robin is addressing ad hoc communication here, but our workflow is set up that if I disappear off the grid and I never actually physically speak to my guest has every single thing they need for pre-arrival, check-in, and check-out. So there are automated messages that go off at select intervals that provide them with everything. And I'm very brief because I know people don't read, and I heavily rely on video. So guests have exactly what they require when they require it. So there are videos that cover most parts of my operation. and they can easily access these things. And plus, my biggest concern when I went over to the full automation that Robin preaches was that I was scared that people would notice it isn't me and that I would lose my superhost status. And the opposite happened. I just stopped working. And that was the dream, but I was I was afraid that the dream was a fantasy. And it wasn't. Like if you just think through your communication, that it can seem like it's me. And many people are shocked and actually mention it in their reviews and to me personally that it's not me. Right. So if you fire it off at the right intervals, your phone can be off for 24 hours. The only risk is that there's an ad hoc message that comes through that cannot be responded to, or they're just asking something that you've already provided to them. And in that case, a co-host is necessary. So when I'm, as an example, I have a co-host now permanently on my properties. And that's just to manage these things, but their actual role is to manage housekeeping and a bunch of other things. But the reality is they also keep an eye on comms. But there are very little comms compared to what there was 5-6 years ago. I mean, because most of these things are being addressed, so they don't happen anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on to that, Jacques. I mean, you mentioned about how you upped your game, even though you've been a host for a long time, you wanted to do it in a smart way, an efficient way. You want to kind of, as we always say, increase your income, increase your profits, decrease your expenses, and increase your time. Now it's time for yourself. You get back your time. And clever systems and processes are amazing. And, in the course I deal with a couple of those. First of all, the systems. What are the systems that create the automation, that send out SMSs, emails, and platforms? Not just one, not just two, but 3 different channels that my guests get messages for. I cater for all of those channels because someone might not have an email. Someone might not look at the platform a lot. Like I found Booking.com people don't read platform messages.
Never.
Whereas Airbnb, they do. They actually, somehow the app works and people read the messages.
I think it's the notifications because Airbnb is heavy on the notifications.
Yeah, and at least now on Airbnb, you can see if your guest has read it and when they've read it. So that's really important. But I also send by SMS. So having a system or a program that sends information is important. That's the first thing. And like I say, I share in the course the different ways to do it because over the time I've learned you can't just rely on one. No. The second component is what do you share and when do you share it? Because as you mentioned, you want to make sure that the guest doesn't actually reach out to you. You want to think that you want them to think you're spending all this time and being so gracious. Meanwhile, it's just automated. Yeah. So the course also gives you those templates. Like, when someone books, I send them an SMS. I send them a platform message. In one of my units, I need to check how they want the bed set up. Do they want kings, singles, in what room? So I that's all automated as well. That all goes through to them, and they tick and they say what they're needing. We know then that 3 days before their check-in, I'm already sending information. Why 3 days? Because if someone was traveling from their hometown to mine and it takes 2 days of travel and they land without internet, I want them to already have the check-in instructions in their inbox and on their app. Not so that they land, can't get Wi-Fi, which now actually, thank God, we've got free Wi-Fi in airports. Yes. But trust me, like a year ago, we kind of didn't.
But people even forget. But if they're online, they can't forget. They'll just get it.
So that's why I do three days before. So all those little tips and tricks that the messaging is not just about, hey, just make sure you communicate well. I've thought and over time figured out when are the best ways to do it and how best to sort that out. I actually learned one thing from you around the video, especially because I remember us chatting probably a good year ago about the problem, especially Booking.com people who just didn't read certain things and they would book something and then have a party. And you said, well, you send them a short 1-minute video. And I was like, yeah, that's a damn good idea. So now when they book, they get a video link because that's when they're most likely going to watch something because you sent it to them as they booked. And there I say, hey, here is what you're going to get. Here is the view. Here is the apartment. Just to remember, I'd only sleep 6. You can't have a party in here, quiet hours are between 10 and 6. And that has changed a big difference or made a big difference. So again, the course covers what you need to know so that you can create a successful experience. I actually love it. I think there's a book. It's not a book that I've read, but I love the title. If that is the correct title, if it's not, I bag it. It's called Predictable Success. I love the concept of that. I want to be able to predict the success, and that's what the course does. It predicts you being successful because it puts everything there. The ingredient you have to bring is not actual intelligence. You don't have to bring that because it's already mapped out for you. You have to bring effort and action. If you don't do that, it's not going to make a difference. The same as people watching our call right now. You know, you might go turn and say like, wow, that's clever. That's nice. I like that. I can try that. But try, as we know, is as good as not doing. So you're going to come back again in 2 weeks' time and hear us talk again, and you're still not any step further because you might have intelligence, but your intelligence is holding you back because you're kind of saying, I'll do this later, I'll do it later, whereas it's now. You know, and there's better time to do it. There's not a bad time to do it. And what I mean by that is there are better times to start, such as now, like a month or two before a high season, or, you know, because we know, and actually wherever you are in the country or the world, there will be certain seasons where are better than others. So those are good times to do it. But there's never a bad time. In Airbnb, there's never a bad time. Student housing, I would say you don't want to buy a student house in March.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like when it's empty and people are already at university, that's tight. You know, May, June, July, that's not good. So there are bad first times. But there's no bad time in the Airbnb world. That's those are my thoughts around the communication that we've got here. You know, that's what it is. Predictable success.
Yeah, exactly. So no, Boitumelo, there's a lot you can do in terms of normal Airbnb guest communication management, but also then when you're off the grid, you just get an extra pair of hands. You give them access to your comms, and then everything's sorted, right? But if you do the comms automation right, there will be so little ad hoc that it's not even a problem. Yeah. And Boitumelo has fired off with another one. He says, hi, Robin, how do you handle guest reviews and feedback? And what steps do you take to continually improve as a host?
Yeah, that's there's so much there. It's like a whole document we could write on that. I want to actually just come back to the other thing on communication that I found incredibly useful is QR codes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So QR codes are those funny, cute little blurry pictures that if you put your camera there and you've done the correct QR code, it's a link to something. I use the QR codes for Wi-Fi, but in this case, I use it for instructions on how to check out, instructions. Like, for example, we've got one where because of the load shedding, the oven turns off. And when you turn it back on, you have to reset the clock kind of thing, or else the oven doesn't work again. So when I got a guest saying, listen, the oven doesn't work, I realized I needed to dummy proof this. So we made a video of how to turn the oven on, put a QR code there so it's neat. The last thing I want is instruction manuals pasted on all the walls about how to do things. And that's what you do. You scan it, it pulls up the document, tells you how to do it, or video in this case, and there we go. So those are the kinds of things that we do. Like here in the penthouse, I've got these stacking doors, big glass stacking doors.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to open them, they're going to get damaged. So just on the sides, the little QR codes, you scan it, and there's me showing you how to open and close the doors so that they don't break. So that kind of the detail is really important.
Technology. It's incredible. Technology. It's making your life so much easier because I have QR codes on everything in the house, very small, beautiful ones. Because these days you can make a QR code with any image or any logo on it. So you can go and smash your face on it or your Airbnb picture or whatever you want to do. But the point is that those links to videos work very well because people instantly know, listen, if I need to know how this appliance works, I just scan it, I watch a video, and I'm sorted. And I've learned with the videos specifically, and this is also for Boitumelo, because this will cut down ad hoc communication, is I show guests how it should work and what to do when it doesn't work and common troubleshooting issues. And then the very last thing that I say is if you've gone through all these processes, please contact me if it still doesn't work. And I promise you, my phone has not rang in 3 years for anything. It just doesn't, because the reality is when the Wi-Fi is off, there are steps for them to take in order to switch it off, switch it on, check it. And if it's still not working, they actually have to go to a website and log a fault, and they just do it and it gets fixed, right? I don't have to get involved anymore. So beautiful. Anyway. Okay. So
back to guest feedback. So this is about guest communication as well. And again, the course explains the value of the reviews. And I do believe that even though they were important 3 years ago, like when I started creating the course, they're as important, if not more so now, because competition has upped their game. Photos are much better. Descriptions are much better. Value for money is going to be better. So you need to have some way that's going to differentiate yourself. Now, thank goodness, South Africans are slack at getting reviews. They somehow just don't ask.
Yes.
And I don't know what they're doing. But again, I don't mind because it benefits what I'm doing. And that is the most important thing. So we prioritize getting reviews. Now, that doesn't mean you have to lie. You don't do anything because, in other words, you don't try and manipulate. You don't give a guest a good review if they're not worthy of it because you're afraid they're going to leave you a bad review. They don't see yours until they've done theirs. So
yes,
there's no risk of that. There are ways for us to get around that, which is a different conversation. But what I have found, and again, it's in the course, and the templates for what I say are in the course. And that is around when you ask for it and when you remind them. So in Airbnb, we have 14 days before the review process closes on a guest. So I think mine is 2 days, 5 days, and 10 days. I think those are the 3 times that if they haven't reviewed, they get automated messages with me explaining how the review is valuable to this process, not just to me, but to my team, to the cleaners, because they get feedback when the good reviews are there. And that means that we are getting a good review process. And that is important. You ask for it, even though it's automated, because I don't really want to go there and ask personally. No. However, here is the trick that we implement now, and it has updated, it has increased our review feedback, even though we already were good. So what we do is, on the day, when a guest checks out, about 2:00, the guest gets a message from Airbnb, not from me, automated. So it's Airbnb drives it, and they say, hey, how was your stay? You want to leave a review. And some of the guests just go and do it. Now, I want to get in there before that time. And what I mean by this is that if the cleaners go in and see there's no damage and there's no reason for us not to review the guest, what we do is we leave a review, just a standard quick one, great guest, kept all the house rules, considerate, things that we feel are true, but also valuable in bolstering the connection between us and the guest. We screenshot that very quickly, just did it, control, and we send them to that on our WhatsApp channel saying, hey, Airbnb is going to ask you for a review later on. We have already written one for you. This is what we have written.
Say it down.
That increases the tendency for the guest to reply back, and we can tailor what we want in what we've said to them, which increases the chance of them coming back. So, for example, we had one of those situations where the guest came and on there, I think either when they checked in or they checked out, they said, listen, just a heads up, we saw a syringe, whether it was an insulin syringe or whatever, we're not quite sure. It says tucked behind the basin in the wall. So obviously it had fallen down. And he said, listen, it's not an issue because this was so clean, it must have just been one of those weird oversights. It wasn't like this was a bad thing.
No.
So we left a review that said, before he could leave one for us, we said, guest was super great, super considerate, and really understanding of, a slight curveball that came along. So what do you think you're going to do if you got that message sent to you? Do you think you're going to go back and just and like deny that and say it's terrible. Like I found a syringe. I've preempted by saying you were so understanding.
That's a very good tactic. So do you guys understand now why the show is so valuable, even for me, because I get to sit here and learn from Robin. So that's very powerful in terms of, because I know that if you had posted these things on Airbnb, you are technically soliciting a review. But now you've done it on WhatsApp. So it's very smart to speak to your guest there and show them what you've written. And I can imagine that just pushes the review rate through the roof because people feel obligated. You've essentially given them a gift, which is a 5-star review.
Yeah.
And you've said nice things about them, and then they now feel they have to reciprocate. So it's very powerful. So
I like to think of it as it increases the chance of them reciprocating. It's not that they now feel, oh my God, I have to.
Well, human psychology does state that people like to reciprocate. So I hear you that it doesn't force them, but it increases the likelihood by a long shot. So it's a smart tactic. But I have a question for you, because everybody on the call might not know it, and maybe I also am missing something. But as far as I know, on Guesty for Hosts, I cannot set an interval on the auto review. I could only set a day. So how are you doing the reviews now? Are you manually doing them?
No, you can do it. We originally, I still have it set as after the second day as the auto review.
Yes.
And then on the 5th day and then the 10th day. Those are all auto reviews on those days. So that is the interval.
Okay, but you're saying that no. So the reason I'm asking is mine is set to 2 days, right?
Yeah.
And for when it leaves the review, but now you're leaving it immediately after checkout.
Yeah.
So are you actually publishing it manually?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're getting your team to do it. So that's the only extra work, but I'm more than willing to do that extra work in order to bump up the review rate.
Exactly. We get the feedback from the cleaners, everything's fine, and then we just punch it straight off. Because remember, you write it. It's just like I said, we tested it. We wanted to see if it would work. The review is so important.
Yes, it's very important.
We were trying to figure out, again, we're always tweaking and seeing where the sweet spots are. And it seemed to have made a difference. And like I said, I don't have a lot of tricky situations because the service and the quality is so good that it's unlikely we're going to get bad stuff. But it just facilitated the tendency to get the feedback. And as you and I both know, if you have high reviews, it really makes a difference. And when we talk about it every time we're on this call, I can hardly recall seeing many units with more than 100 reviews in all my time period. Whereas in the States, they're in thousands already. So
10,000.
It's just, and I can see you want to charge more, have good reviews, and have a lot of them. And
absolutely.
You'll have way greater booking fees. It's a no-brainer. So to go and just, like I say, just copy and paste something for those of you like, I don't want to sit there writing. Then have a little thing where you just copy a standard review. Because the guest the guest kept the house rules. They were considerate, good communication, and would be very happy to host them again. That's it. Copy, paste.
Exactly.
And write. I mean, we create WhatsApp channels. Actually, as you know, in the course, I tell you how to get them to WhatsApp you first. So I didn't have to. Because if you remember, there I was at the beginning, like, I had a new contact, do this. Hey, hi, this is Robin. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much work. Like, why don't I get them to do it? Send them a link. They click on the link. It opens up WhatsApp on their phone. It's pre-populated.
With a pre-stock message. Exactly.
Yeah, pre-populated. So then I know straight away who they are,
where they're from. Yeah.
Because WhatsApp is better if there's a crisis or there's a problem.
Yes, absolutely.
And remember as well, if there is a problem, we go back to all the channel manager, to the platforms, the channel managers, because we want it recorded so that the platforms can see if there's a problem. So it's those kinds of things. So all that little stuff. But as you know, that's all there.
Cool. I have 2 comments quickly. So the first one is for people who want to copy and paste things. I'm not going to mention this one because you need hardware for that. But on a computer, my best method for copying and pasting, I literally have a sticky note shortcut on my machine for something like Airbnb reviews, and you just open that up, copy and paste it, and there you go, right? And you just substitute the name. But on your phone, whether it's an iPhone or a Android, I use an iPhone, but you can create shortcuts on your keyboard. So you can literally create, like for mine, if I want to link to my blog, I say /blog and it inserts that thing. But you can insert entire messages of 1,000 characters in that shortcut. So what you do is you just say /review or /Airbnb or whatever, and it'll pre-populate your messages for you. But to just touch on you said that Airbnb hosts and guests in South Africa are slack with reviews. So here it is. Like, I just came from the States. I stayed in 5 different Airbnbs. I am probably the best guest you will ever have. If there are serious problems, I will speak up, but I'll address it in a nice way. But I had no problems at my listings and had a really good interaction with my hosts. And we all had great feedback even after we left. And I left all 5 of them 5-star reviews. I've been out of there for almost 2 weeks. I haven't gotten a single review back. Like, they just didn't leave me reviews. I don't understand it. So it's strange that they're not reviewing their guests, right? I actually reached out to one of them and he said he forgot. So it's like, I don't understand that it seems to not be a thing to review your guest, but the hosts are getting reviews. Obviously, they have a lot of reviews. But nonetheless, I thought I should note that everybody is slack in some way. So when it comes to reviews, I think it's a really important part of the process, because what if I was a bad guest or something? They should note it, right? Like, they should protect the Airbnb community from people like me if I wasn't a model guest, right? So not the case in this instance. But anyway, okay, let's move on. Boitumelo has another one. Thank you, Boitumelo, by the way, for participating in this chat. So, Robin, you touched on the best time to getting started on Airbnb, unlike student accommodation. I recall a few lives ago, either you or Jacques saying that September is low season. Is this still the case now, or have bookings improved?
Definitely bookings have improved. September was, I think,
September's good.
It varied. I think for different units, it changes from year to year. Yeah. We know traditionally the winter months are less travelable. Our rates do drop significantly during that time period. Again, there's a lot more than just the season. The season predicts what you charge. It doesn't predict occupancy. Yeah. Because if you've got a good product and you're priced well, you will still get the top people who are traveling. You'll still be the first choice because you're listed first and all those things. You've got good reviews. That even if there are only 10 people in your neighborhood who are traveling, well, you just have to be the best, and you'll still have people booking you out.
Exactly.
It just means you're going to be charging less because they're not 100 fighting for your place. They're only 10. So you'll still be chosen, but just the competition is not as strong,
and everyone around you is charging less.
They're expecting something different.
Yeah.
So definitely, bookings have improved. But like I said, it's not so much the bookings have improved. It's just we can increase our prices and still be.
I think we just lost Robin for a moment there. I don't know if that was just on my side, but you disappeared, Robin.
No, you switched around for some reason, but maybe I did. It looks like I swapped.
Yeah, we both switched, so it's strange. I don't know who dropped, but it seems that we're both still here. Okay, so September, I was 100% occupied for September. I was off at one of my units for 11 days for maintenance. But for the remaining 19 days, I was fully booked, right? But as Robin said, your rates are the determining factor, right? Like, my rates in September are lower than they are in December, as an example, but they're higher than they are in June. So it just depends on where. And I mean, when we speak of or at least when I speak of occupancy rates, I always quote a straight line figure for the year because, well, my highest one runs on this year at 93%, and the other one runs at about 88%. So that's straight line for the year, right? But the rate is the determining factor. If I'm going to try and pull December rates in June, then I'll probably be occupied for 0 days, in my opinion. So that's just not going to work unless I get lucky. So, yeah. But no, so It's never a bad time to start, in my opinion. Various hosts have various opinions on whether you should start in winter. I like starting in winter, but you're going to be hammered by cash flow, right? That's the problem. I would start at the tail end of winter, but if you can start at least 2 months before the high season, I would say if you can start in October, like right now, that would be a really good time because you still have enough time to lock in major December bookings, and then just cream it all the way until March. So we have another one from Boitumelo. So Sweleni, do you mind putting the other one on? Thank you kindly. I love the idea of giving guest reviews before they leave a review. Me too. I'm doing that from tomorrow. It opens up a window for them reciprocating that the review and feedback highlighting their experience, unlike asking them to give you a review. Exactly. So because we are asking for a review in our automated messages later, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, if you frame it correctly. And that's where the course teaches you valuable insights of how to ask for it. Why should they be incentivized to leave you? You're not begging them, you're giving them valid reasons for why it matters. And then they usually respond. Like, I have a very high review rate, but I know that this tactic is going to drive it through the roof. So I will report back in the next segment to see how it goes. So thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me quickly scroll up. I think we had more communication. We only had one from Noni, which said, "Good evening, Robin and Jacques." Hi there, Noni. So, Noni, do you have any questions for us? Because we'd love to help. And if there's anybody else, I don't have any other questions that I brought from the side. I checked the group. There was nothing on there. So I think before we wait for the next one, I just want to quickly, let's run through the superhost thing. So me and Robin were talking about my superhost status. So I've been priding myself for a very long time that I've been a superhost continuously from the day that I started, which was in December of 2012. So that's a good, we're almost at 11 years now in December. So I had been priding myself that I had been a decade-long superhost uninterrupted. And I didn't want to mention it in the last live that I had actually lost my superhost status, but I'm very happy to say that I got it back in this review. And the reasons that I lost it, is it comes down to me taking my eye off the goal. I had a co-host in place, which I maybe expected too much from and took my eye off the prize when it came to quality control. And then I also had some problematic guests, which do not make psychological sense for the reviews they left versus the feedback they gave in person. So that was strange, but it doesn't matter because even if you count them, there were issues in my apartments which were not addressed in a timely manner. And it shows me that and what it led to was that's what this whole course is about and what everything is about, right? It's about making money, but also freeing up time. And what I had to go and think about is how am I going to institute quality control that works every single time without me having to be there and check up on people, right? So we've put in extra systems now to make sure that these things happen. And I've connected it to other things and it's working very well. So I'm happy that it's back. And we've just been getting great reviews. And I also actually did some maintenance. I think the chief complaint at one of my units, and I think I mentioned it in the previous live, that I spent quite a bit of money on one of my units, which is not a unit I own, right? Like I paid a large portion of the owner's expenses. And that is a long-term investment because I'm renting that property at least for the next 3 to 5 years. I've signed a 3-year lease, so it's in my best interest. But the reality is people were complaining about things that I was on the fence about in the beginning because it's not my property. And then I was like, no, this is pretty much my property to use as an asset. And I think it's my responsibility to keep it up to standard. And that's what drove that discussion. So anyway, so the superhost thing, it's important, but I think it matters. I think it matters in terms of rankings. But I don't think it's the be-all, end-all. Like, you can do very well. I know non-superhosts that kill it on Airbnb, by the way. So it's definitely not a requirement. But there are benefits to doing it. But there are strict requirements. Like, you can very easily lose it. But you can also very easily get it back. I mean, it really didn't take much effort on my part to get it back, right? Like, you had to do a few things. It took me maybe 5-6 hours of work, of actual work, and put things in place, and then it just took care of itself. Right? So, yeah, that's a story. So I'm happy to be a super host again. I can't say uninterrupted anymore. That's the pain. Anyway, so we have another question. Is it advisable? And it's Martin. Hello, Mr. Hoffman. Is it advisable to start your own businesses to support your Airbnb automation if you have a few units close to another? Jay, you would know what I mean. So I think what Martin is referring to here is, well, two things. The first one is businesses that directly support your Airbnb operations, and the other one is ancillary businesses that feed off of Airbnb. So the supporting ones would be starting your own cleaning company, starting a linen rental service, which may or may not make sense for your own units, but you would be able to buy in bulk and make money out of other hosts. And then there are supporting services. An example would be luggage storage or whatever the case may be, so that you can store your own luggage and maybe store those hosts around you. So I don't know, Robin, what do you think of controlling the supply chain, first of all, and then getting ancillary things?
So I would be very cautious of doing that. We all know businesses, the chance of any business succeeding is very low. There are stats that say whatever, I don't know offhand, but X amount of businesses fail in their first year. That drops in their second year, 5 year, and like only a couple last longer than 10 kind of scenario. So starting separate businesses to solve a problem in one business is not a good idea. So what I mean by that is the cleaning one is the biggest one that I think you'll probably be faced with, because the problem are competent companies out there that clean, one, and then two, they're expensive. Their rates are so expensive.
Yes.
That it just eats in all your money. And if you're competing with the mom and pop who use their domestic to clean their room, well, they're already paying for the domestic, so they don't have to add the cleaning fee. So they are super competitive rates to you who's paying for someone to clean. We explored so many options, from how to do our own cleaning, from cleaning business and all that kind of stuff. And I kept reminding myself, you're starting a business to support another business, which is not a good business. That business can't stand on its own if mine doesn't, the Airbnb doesn't work. So all I am is adding layers of complexity, because now what I'm going to do is spend my time trying to figure out how to keep that other business busy and profitable, and it just goes round and round. Now, that's not always going to be the case. One of my clients has, I think, 17 properties, and he started his own business, which means he actually had to buy a car, full-time employment for the cleaners. He had, I think his mother-in-law is running the business, and he is now expanding to other people. But it kind of like broke even just with his own.
Yes.
His own property. So in that sense, it kind of made sense, because he actually was getting bad reviews because of his cleaning company that he was using. So it made sense for him to clean that up. In other words, to find his own people who he could train and make that work. I have my own also internal cleaning teams. For a couple of reasons, and sorry, we don't have time to chat about that today. We'll have to carry that over to the next session. So book it in your calendars. But that would be the only time and the where I think it really makes sense. One of my other clients, he had a kind of guest house where he had 4 or 5 different Airbnb units in. And what he said was becoming very profitable was the tuck shop. In other words, having food for sweets, wine, snacks sale in his place, and then actually doing prepared meals.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Where he would either get it from somewhere else and bring it in. I'm not quite sure. I was like, well, God, that just sounds like a lot of work to me.
It's a lot of work.
He had someone who was on site and could do all that. I'm fine. But again, you're now starting another business and managing people. And people are often a cost of a business. They're not growth of a business. So That's not what I'm wanting. So it's not a fixed no. It's my question. And like I said to my client who we were discussing this and we decided it was a good move for him, is I said to him, do not do this if that business cannot survive on its own. And that was how he went into it. And that then
Agreed.
kind of can make sense. Then he is creating a vertical integration of the business, which is what you're referring to, where the one business feeds into the other, and as opposed to a horizontal integration, which is the businesses have nothing to do with each other. So that was the requirement that I said to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me is that my requirements always for starting businesses is profit, like it needs to make money on its own. But the other one that you touched on was the quality control. If I cannot reliably solve my quality control, I might bite the bullet and start that business only to solve that, even as a loss driver, right? Because the quality might matter more on the Airbnb side than the money does on the other side, because it might actually just cost the same what you were paying anyway with more effort, but you would drastically improve your Airbnb side. But to be honest, that would only really matter at scale, like with him with 17 units. And I think that's what Sweleni put on here. And I purposefully left that out of the conversation because I wanted to hear your answer first. But Martin, who asked the question, is specifically referring to 2,000 units. And yes, that would change the answer drastically, because you could start a business that could just service those 2,000 units, right? Like that would be a whole different ballgame. You wouldn't need any other clients, to be honest. Like if you were able to service 2,000 units for whatever business that may be. So, okay, fantastic. We have another one here quickly from, I'm wary of time. We have 9 minutes left. So from Boitumelo, reflecting on the restrictions imposed in New York and other cities, are there any legal or regulatory considerations that Airbnb hosts should be aware of besides taxes, looking at hosting from a South African context? No, I think the only one there is the days. Like, I mean, it's the restriction on days. Like, and I don't think that will happen in South Africa. If it happens, firstly, I don't know how they're going to enforce it unless Airbnb plays along. But secondly, that would be devastating. But that's why I know it won't happen.
The restrictions are, I don't think they're at municipal levels yet, but they are in building levels. So certain buildings have explicitly stated no short-term letting.
Airbnb.
And those that are sitting on the fence, well, it's not a restriction yet. So that's just something you have to look at. That's the only one at this moment that comes in to play. And of course, you will still abide by noise levels and some bylaws around that. So those are just things that you would need to take into consideration.
Sorry, I was actually coming at that question from a different angle, which was incorrect, which was the bill that's being passed, but he was asking it in general, so your answer is on point. Yeah, there are no real restrictions other than building restrictions right now, and bylaws if there is something at a building level, but that's hardly applicable.
And my recommendation is that don't trust what an agent says.
Oh, never.
Whether you're renting or buying, ask to see the body corporate rules. I mean, I remember I bought a unit
in writing.
And I bought the unit, and the agent told me, no one's going to build in front of you because, you're not allowed to build more than 4 stories. And at the beginning of this year, someone bought it, and they have a loophole where the building was planned. The building plans were passed 20 years ago. And if you want to change the plans, yes, you couldn't do more than 4 stories. But if you're going to build what it was planned for, that zoning at that time still applies, which means they could have unlimited height and boundary access and a whole lot of stuff. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Yeah. And of course, the same, someone says, you can do Airbnb. There are a whole lot of other units in the building that do Airbnb. Well, they just get away with it. If the building regulation says no Airbnb in a short-term letting, then you've got to take that into account. So again, don't take an agent's word. It should be as a suspensive condition in your purchase. My offer is suspensive on me viewing and approving the body corporate rules.
Yes.
And if it's a lease, same kind of thing. conditionally on me viewing the body corporate rules and getting sometimes actually even written confirmation from the body corporate trustees that I can do short-term letting.
Absolutely. I put that as a suspensive condition in mine, and we actually got that letter from the body corp. So you will get it. Sometimes you'll get pushback because the body corp might be lazy and doesn't want to do it. But the reality is then at a minimum, you should get a very firm body corporate rule that says we allow short-term rentals, not nothing. Because if they have nothing in there, it's very easy to add something, but it's very hard to change something. So that requires notes.
Yeah, and last comment on that then is look in the body corporate rules as the occupancy rates for that unit.
Yes.
So most of them have two people per bedroom as on the title deed, not what the previous owner converted the lounge into.
Yes.
That's that. Now, some buildings will have, for example, my one unit has it's 2 people per bedroom and 1 in the common area if it's less than 14 days. So I could have 3. Whereas the other ones are 2 per bedroom, that's it. So, it's like you can't have a sleeper couch.
Yeah, that's very good. Like that's a benefit, but I've actually seen a body corporate rule where they stated no more than 3 occupants in a 2-bedroom. Right. So you must be very careful about that. That was actually recent where I saw this in a building that I operate in, but and they vetoed it now because I don't know who came up with that rule. But nonetheless, but that's very dangerous. Like you must be sure that you don't sign agreements with that in place. And that's why Robin's comment goes, never trust an agent. Verify, don't trust, verify, get it in writing. From the horse's mouth, not from the agent, from the body corporate and from the owner or from the municipality if you plan to do what you want to do with the property. So, yeah. Okay, we have 4 minutes. So I think we need to sign off now. I mean, you will see in the link, I think, Sweleni, if you can please put that final comment on the screen. So oh, no, it is actually flashing on the screen at the bottom as well, which is the link to Robin's courses. So they're actually on our website as well, on the ZA Training one. You're going to save some bucks if you buy them there. So yeah, incredible course. We've all done them. A lot of people have used them and made a lot of money. But ultimately, for me personally, it's not about the money because I was already making good money before I did Robin's courses or even heard about them. But now I don't work. Just imagine that. Imagine the fact that I'm an entrepreneur. I have multiple businesses and I'm like a squirrel that's distracted by everything. So the reality is now I can go be distracted because I'm still making money and I don't have to be a hands-on host anymore, right? Because this was very time consuming and I was even good at putting systems in place. But this took it to a whole nother level. So do yourself the favor and go and do it right the first time. And then you don't make mistakes that we've all made and cost me a lot of money over the last 11 years. So, and hopefully we don't make them anymore, but we're still learning. And that's the good thing because the course will always be updated. If Robin adds new things, you get them, right? So,
And also, we always know, and this is the change that we brought about a couple of months ago, is that when people do buy the course now, they join into the WhatsApp group of those who've joined. And they've got actually some of the students that I've mentioned before, they are all on there as well, where they've got multiple units in Durban, Pretoria, Cape Town, Joburg. They've got units there. And so there's people there who are keen to help you. So your startup is you don't feel alone. So that we added on because we know that starting is always the tricky one. So you get that as part of buying the course. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's why it was worth mentioning because that support is very valuable if you can ask questions from people who are in the game. Okay, we have 1 minute left. We've got another question which we're not going to answer. So it's from Cicelo. Cicelo, thank you kindly for your question. We are going to park this one for next time because it's a very important one with landlord and agent rejections. It's a little bit of a longer conversation, and I think it's worth 5 minutes of spending time on it. So you are going to have to join next month. This is now on the 3rd Friday today, or 3rd Thursday of the month, which is not our normal slot. It's usually on the 2nd Thursday, but due to my travel conflicts, we couldn't have it last week. So next month on the 2nd Thursday, we will be live again at the same time, 6:30 local time. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Just
Thank you, Robin.
good job. Good.
Have a
See you next time. Cheers.
Chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.